last week I challenged myself to read 15 books and I read about 8. So that's the thing that happened on my blog, and if you don't follow my blog, you should probably go do that. I'll put a link below. 3 of those books happen to be mermaid books, so I thought I'd show you some of those and tell you a little bit about them. You know, give you something a little bit different for summer reading, not just like the contemporary fun beachy reads, but the actual like, you know, hardcore Little Mermaid kind of stuff. So basically there's this guy named Hans Christian Andersen, and he wrote this fairy tale called The Little Mermaid, and this is the first mermaid book that I read, and it's illustrated by Charles Santor, and I think that this is the one that you should get if you want to read this, because it has such pretty illustrations. Like, you got all of this, all the sisters, because basically the story goes that, you know, you have to wait till you're 16, 18 to go up to the surface, and when the littlest mermaid, when she goes up there, she's like, man, I really want to go on land and see how that goes, and her grandmother is like, well, you kind of have to go to this sea witch and talk to her about that, and she'll help you out. And of course, you know, she knows the implications or the whatever, she knows the consequences of this whole thing. And so basically she's all like, okay, I can deal with that. I can deal with becoming sea foam if this does not work out. Next we have The Mermaids Muir by L.K. Madigan, and sadly she passed away last year, and I just want a sequel. This is such a well-written novel. I really liked it. It's about this girl who, you know, she's living on land, she's living her life. She's 16 years old, turning 16 in this novel, and, you know, she knows that there's something different, something's weird in the water, if you know what I mean. So she goes and she seeks and she finds that there are mermaids in the water. You know, at the beginning of these kinds of novels you hear like the girl going, oh well, I don't know if that's real or if it's fairy tale, and so she's like, man, fairy tale, and there's otters out there, and there's, you know, different sea creatures out there, but I don't know about mermaids. And then she finds out about her mother, which I don't want to spoil, but it's just a big secret, and it's just like this total turnaround in the novel, or I guess just like a total climactic experience with her going and looking for her mother, and that has to do with the mermaids and all that fun stuff, and just really good mermaid novel. I really enjoyed it a lot. Like I said, really good writing, just really all around good story. I loved every character. They're all very well rounded. Like I mentioned in yesterday's review about, you know, there's some parents that are usually like just very two-dimensional, but in this novel I felt like they were a little bit more dimensional in their characters, especially with what's going on in this novel. They need to be more dimensional because of the fact that, you know, her mother and her father come from 2 different worlds and 2 different things, and it's just like, it's mind-blowing, awesome, good read. Get this one. And then I read Daughters of the Sea. This is Hannah, the first book, and I wasn't that impressed. I was looking at the cover and I was like, man, that's such a pretty cover, and then I read it and I was like, there's no really like climactic point. I mean, there's a point where, like, you know, the main character of course finds out that she's a mermaid, but like other than that, it's just like there wasn't really anything that was going for this novel. Basically it's about this girl named Hannah who's an orphan, and she's just like, you know, there's something weird going on when I move away from the sea, and my skin gets all flaky and weird and turns into like the salt stuff, and so she keeps a pouch of it around her neck, which is kind of weird. But, you know, whatever. She ends up going back to Boston and working for this family and going to live by the sea in Maine and things like that. And, you know, her life gets better and all that stuff. And she meets this lovely painter, and he's awesome. And I wish there were more scenes with those two. That would have been cool. But Catherine Lasky is more of a middle grade novelist. And I don't know. I just didn't feel like this was a very YA novel. It was just kind of... Not that it was immature, but it felt like it just shied away from too many things, and it just didn't take any risks. Whereas, you know, with L.K. Madigan's book, she just goes all out. Let's do this mermaid thing, let's go. And this is just kind of like, the girl is trying to find out where she belongs, and of course she finds out where she belongs, but you don't see any mermaids other than her. So that was kind of a letdown, but, you know, it's an alright novel if you're like just getting into YA kind of fantasy stuff. I guess you could do that. Like if you're, you know, moving from middle grade to YA, like if you're younger going into the young adult that could be a book for you. So those are all the mermaid novels that I read this week. I hope that you check some of these out. If you do, or if you have any recommendations as far as mermaid novels, leave them below and we'll chat it up and talk about all of the mermaid stuff. I hope you all have a great day and keep reading.